Welcome, ladies and gentlemen and guests. This is the FilterLIFE podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Holmes. I'm a U.S. Navy Special Operations veteran and kidney warrior living with kidney disease linked to toxic chemical exposure during my time in the Navy. On this podcast, we sit down for real, one-on-one conversations with guests from all walks of life, patients, donors, caregivers, advocates, and medical professionals, creating space for people who want to share their story and for those who want to share knowledge to our kidney community. FilterLIFE is about more than kidney disease. It's about how we filter through fear, information, opinions, and uncertainty so we can protect what matters the most, our health, our mindset, and our future. Some of these conversations are going to be raw, some are going to be heavy, and some are going to bring watery eyes along the way. So please use caution if you're listening to this at the gym where you have to explain why you have watery eyes or while driving. But if you're ready for honest connection and real life takeaways, people who've lived this journey, hey, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. And let's filter life together. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the FilterLIFE podcast. I'm your host, Dan Holmes, U.S. Navy veteran, kidney disease survivor, advocate, and the founder of the Enlisted Kidney Foundation. Today, we have a special guest, very, very special to our hearts. We want to welcome Gail Ray Garwood. Gail, welcome to our show. Welcome to our podcast. And thank you for sitting down with us today. How are you?
I'm fine, and it is my pleasure.
Awesome. This has been a little while in the making. You and I have been connected for a little while, and I'm really excited to sit down with you because you have a unique perspective in the world of kidney disease, and you apply it to the world in a different way than most. So I'd like to talk to you about that and kind of get your perspective on things. How we start on the FilterLIFE podcast always is, I like to ask my guests what the word filter life or living the filter life means to them.
Well, having been an English teacher for 35, 40 years, I'm a literalist, and to me it means filtering my life through a certain screen. And in this case, the screen for me is chronic kidney disease. It means not forgetting my medication in the morning or at night. It means keeping an eye on what I eat. It means keeping an eye on what I excrete as far as urine. It's a whole other mindset, and it has different points to watch than the normal life of get up, have coffee, go do whatever.
I love that. So you're living the filtered life. You're living with CKD. Gail, tell me a little bit about the beginning of your journey with CKD. When was the first time you heard chronic kidney disease in your world, and how did that affect you when you first heard that?
Well, it had a dramatic effect. I just moved to, I'd been in Arizona for a while. I had just changed doctors. This doctor did tests, excuse me, one of them being a blood test, and he got an eGFR, which is the kidney rate. And I had no idea what 39 meant. So I asked my PCP, my new PCP, because I left this guy, and she told me it means you're seeing a nephrologist tomorrow. So
wow.
My reaction to that was, what is it and how did I get it?
Yeah.
That was the title of my first book about chronic kidney disease.
What is it and how did I get it? Now, Gail, when did you first write that book?
10 was the publish, so it took about 2 years to write because I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning. I never heard of CKD. I knew what a kidney-shaped swimming pool was, but that was about my knowledge of kidneys.
There's not a lot of... Now, you said you were an English teacher for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
In your education experience, where was kidney disease in any of that ever?
It wasn't.
Did you ever learn about it?
It wasn't. Nor was it a part of when I went to my regular doctor for checkups or cold, bronchitis, whatever. Never heard the word until I looked at the eGFR. And actually, I was just curious. It was something I'd never heard of before. There it is on my blood work. And being who I am, I had to research it and find out what it was because I like to know things. When I found out, my goodness, I really thought that it was a death sentence. And one of my children was getting married. And my first reaction when it was explained to me what it is was, no, my daughter's getting married. I can't die now. I really thought I was going to die right then and there. I mean, we all die, but did it have to be then?
Right.
And of course,
Right. We
the
don't get to
answer is
pick and
no.
choose that. We don't get to pick and choose that. Now, after you were diagnosed, I'm assuming you're in a hospital setting or something like CKD. So you
The PCP I was seeing at the time included the I can never say this word. Mula filtration rate was an indication, which is an indication of how well your kidneys are working, and the result was 39%.
and
That's
that's out of
how I
100?
found out. It's a little over 100. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So 39, look, being a teacher, maybe you weren't a math major, but 39% of 100 is a failing grade,
Oh yeah.
no matter what subject you're in, right?
And
So how did you handle that and what'd you do about it?
well, first I freaked,
I
and
bet.
then
I bet.
after I freaked, I said, "Whoa, whoa, this is not going to work like this. You are a single parent. You do have children. Settle down and figure out what's going on." So I asked loads of questions of the nephrologist, so many that he finally said to me, "Just let me handle this. Leave it alone and just let me do it." Wrong thing to
Wow.
say to me. Definitely the
Worst thing
wrong
ever.
thing. I had a wonderful father. I didn't need another one. So I was very, very upset. And one of the nurses noticed, and she asked if I'd like to change to this other doctor in the nephrology setting. And I said, okay, I'll try it because I don't know what's going on. It's making me nuts. He explained and explained and explained. But there were still lots of questions because he couldn't sit there with me all day long and answer
Right.
all the questions. Then he introduced me to his dietitian. Bingo. She
Boom.
answered a lot of questions. And she, of course, also, I believe she also guest blogged for SlowItDownCKD. Excuse me. And she was mentioned in the first book, What Is It and How Do I Get It? Early Stage Chronic Kidney Disease. So we got that all in place. And I said, wait a minute, what about the people that don't know how to research for themselves? Because I was teaching research writing at the college level.
Right. That's not easy to do, especially in today's age of unlimited information and some of it being not accurate, right?
Oh, yeah. The whole thing about checking your sources and checking the dates on the research. So, as I said, I was sitting there saying to myself, what about the people that don't know how to research? You're just going to leave them there? Because my life philosophy is that we're here to help others. So I thought about publishing, but except for, I'm trying to think of the word, except for English skills books, I
Okay.
really had never published anything. So I said, all right, well, you're a researcher, find out how to do it. So I did. And that's where the first book came from. And I got emails and phone calls and texts, not a lot, but enough to get me going, that people said, could you, and ask me the question, or do you know about, and ask me the question. So I started thinking, okay, sounds like we need more information. And that's where the weekly blog came from. And then I had
Gotcha.
people calling me up, because at that time my number was easily available, and saying, my dad has CKD. He doesn't know how to use a computer. It doesn't do well for him to read a blog because he doesn't know how to do it. Could you print it, please? And that's when the yearly books came out of the blogs.
I love that.
Changed
So
my whole life.
you ch- you decided to put it into print for the ones that couldn't reach it electronically. That's amazing. I love that because
Yeah,
there's not a whole lot of people that are thinking about our elder population. And that's, we would automatically assume, most people assume and experience when you have CKD, it's usually somebody old. It's usually somebody older that gets diagnosed and, just kidneys stop working. And that's just part of getting old, and that's not the case. I mean, I talk to people who got CKD from birth. I talk to people who are diagnosed as a kid. I talk to athletes that are in high school that are diagnosed with rare protein spilling kidney diseases. I talk to veterans that have been exposed to toxic chemicals that cause kidney disease, like myself. So there's all these different aspects of how one could get a kidney disease or how one reacts to a kidney disease once they've been diagnosed. And something you said earlier really struck a chord with me because I agree with you. And what that is you went to go see a dietitian because you didn't really know what questions to ask your nephrologist, right? He kind of was telling you, hey, Gail, I got this. And you're like, yeah, you may have it your way. I don't know how you learned how to get this, but I need to be able to put my research behind it as well. And Gail, I felt that in the room when my nephrologist kind of threw the hands up when I was diagnosed, and I was like, I'm going to have to be the smartest person in this room, and I don't know anything about a kidney. So let's get reading. And it's awesome because in my world where I come from, my mother and my brother are authors. My mom is a published author. She writes romance novels, a little bit different than what you do. And then my brother actually worked at a printing press and has his master's degree in creative writing. So he loves to write and he loves to publish. And, he's been an editor for his, all of his adult life. And it's very interesting that you're an author and and we found our paths crossing, and it goes to show that CKD doesn't matter if you are a warrior fighting a war or an author sitting at home putting together a book. It can affect us all equally. So I appreciate you sharing that.
A story about that. I also write fiction, nonfiction, creative nonfiction. My husband is a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army.
My
and
goodness, thank you for his service.
He was recently diagnosed with CKD, and the feeling is that it was Agent Orange. I mean, we talked about he was right up there with Agent Orange in Vietnam for the whole time he was there. I think he was a sergeant at that time, and he was just right up there.
Now, Gail, were you aware that the Enlisted Kidney Foundations, we help veterans who've been exposed to toxic chemicals like Agent Orange? We help them get rated through the VA and get treatment. And were you aware that that's a service that we provide for free?
No, I'm very glad to hear that. Luckily,
Agent Orange and toxic chemical exposure is dear to our heart. I was exposed to a toxic chemical during my time in the service, and that has contributed to my kidney disease. Now, as we start to do research, you were saying earlier you love to do the research and you dive into it. I started doing some research as well. But I really wanted to make sure that the research that I was finding was peer-reviewed research by researchers, people who do this for real. And I started actually coming across a lot of really good information which we've posted on our website, but a lot of connections that are connecting the dots. Now that they used my story in passing of the PACT Act, which allows the VA to recognize toxic chemical exposure like Agent Orange as disabling. They never recognized it before. For instance, Gulf War illness and Gulf War syndrome. The Gulf War was in the early 90s or something. They just recognized the burn pits and the toxic chemical exposures from the Gulf War, and they're starting to treat patients. They have an actual diagnosis code. But that was as of October 1st, 2025. It took all this time just to recognize that people are getting sick from their exposures. And your husband, I would love to dive into his case further. But this is about your story.
Right. I couldn't help bringing him up.
I understand. It's part of your story because if you were his husband during his time of service, I mean, you were a military wife, you were a spouse, you were...
Well, a military wife now, but I wasn't then.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about your publication. You write a blog called SlowItDownCKD. And I believe your first blog was in 2010, you said, correct?
No, 2010 was What Is It and How Did I Get It? Early Stage Chronic Kidney Disease. First blog was 2011.
Love it. Got it. Okay, perfect. What I noticed, Gail, is that this blog is still going. What is keeping you going for 15 years? How do you write this and stay motivated this long?
This is my give back. Life was very difficult for a long time, and it involved my kids, and people came to help. People I didn't even know came to help, and this is my give back. Now, it makes it a lot easier to give back because there's always new discoveries. There's new, you just mentioned politics. There's new bills. There's new information. There's new comorbidities. So it's not a static thing. It's always changing. Sometimes people want to write a guest blog. I think it's next week's coming up. It's nothing more than gratitude. This particular writer is writing about gratitude.
I love that.
It's always something in a good way.
I love that. And we keep reading them. I mean, that's the thing is people keep reading them. And so it's interesting. And I'm sure that builds some motivation, knowing that people are out there, they're paying attention to it, they're reading it, and they're getting something from it.
Every time I get a comment from a reader, it gives me that impetus to keep going. Because sometimes it gets lonely on this side of the computer.
I can relate. This is why we like to sit down with our guests and our special guests, because it brings some personability and it brings some humanity to this kidney disease, right? When most people think about kidney disease, they're scared of dialysis. They know a bunch of wrong information about transplant process, and that's all they really know, and that your kidneys look like a bean, or a pool. That's,
Oh, yes. When I was
you know,
first diagnosed, the first question friends asked me was, do you have to go on dialysis? People that aren't involved with chronic kidney disease, as I wasn't until I was diagnosed, have no idea. I mean, as I said before, I thought I was going to die.
Gail, what did your treatment look like? What did your treatment look like? You had, a below passing grade on your filtration rate. Where did we go from here?
Well, obviously the diet and medication. There are certain medications that will help with kidney disease. In a way, I was lucky, if you can call it lucky, because I was already on these medications for other problems, medical problems.
Okay.
Exercise, that's pretty important. And I was an exercise nut. I was teaching at a local college, and they allowed me to use the gym every time I taught, which was either 2 days a week or 3 days a week, depending on my schedule. I was also at the gym. Although I have to admit that since I've had pancreatic cancer, I kind of slacked off on the exercise. But I'll get back to it.
You'll get right back to it. You'll get back to it. Now, so what I'm hearing is that you were diagnosed with CKD and you had your EGFR, right? Your estimated glomerular filtration rate was at 30-some%. You didn't really go on dialysis because it wasn't low enough. And they usually don't start talking about dialysis until you're below like 20%, and then so you started taking some medications. Now, these medications, were they designed for kidney disease or were they used for other things, but your doctors, like when you say helped for the kidney, because there's a common misconception, right? I see it on the internet a lot when we talk about misinformation. A lot of people who, they get diagnosed with kidney disease and there's some fix, right? There's some herb, there's some lemon, there's some mixture of some juice you drink and it reverses your disease, right? I want to make sure that we understand that Gail had to put in the work. Gail had to walk those miles that most don't want to walk, right? You had to go to a dietitian, tell them all the crap you were eating and how do you fix it? So you had to swallow that pill, literally. And then not only did you have to do that, you had to put in the miles to maintain that healthy lifestyle, which was a complete change. You had to figure out how to grocery shop. You had to figure out how to cook it all. You had to figure out the prices that fresh food costs so much more than boxed food for some reason, right? So I'm sure some of that, you had to put that work in. And then after you put the work in through your diet, you said you had to go and put work in physically at the gym.
And I was a dancer at that time. So whenever there was a swing dance or a blues dance, I was there dancing my brains out.
Man, I love that. I love that because the exercise portion is where most people, especially when they don't feel very good, that's the first thing that usually slacks, right? Is getting out there, getting into the gym or getting out on that walking path or on that trail or out on that hill hike or whatever you're going to do for exercise. It's initiating it. And when you feel sick and you have kidney disease, a lot of times you could feel like you have the flu that just never goes away.
And
when you feel
so
like that,
tired.
There's no way you want to go outside. When's the last time, for all our listeners, think about the last time that you were really sick and you had the flu or, I don't know, you were just down and out.
That's easy. That was last week.
There you go. A patient with kidney disease may feel that every day, all day. And we still have to show up, smile, serve you your food, wash your dishes, do the jobs that we teach your children, police the community, right? Respond to emergencies. These things still have to take place with patients who have kidney disease. So it's a life-changing thing, and it can change your life pretty dramatically. Talk to me a little bit, Gail, about how this has changed your life then.
Well, energy-wise, I was kind of an overachiever. So I was acting at the same time I was writing, at the same time I was teaching. Back in New York, I was teaching high school. Out here, I was teaching college. Plus, I was a single parent. And back in New York, I had a house that was falling down around my ears, a beautiful Victorian that I couldn't keep up. But out here, I don't have to do anything on the house. So there I am with all this energy, moving like crazy. And then one of my kids got sick, and that kind of changed everything. Now, although, I don't know, to be perfectly honest, I don't know if it has to do with the pancreatic cancer or my age, which is 78. I have no idea, although I kind of think it's the kidney disease because that's the underlying factor. I'm tired a lot. My kids are all out of the house. My
Okay.
husband is here, but he has tremendous health problems, and I'm his caretaker. And I find that I don't really have the energy for that. Of course, I do it. I love him. I want to take care of him. But the energy level is so low. I haven't written a book other than SlowItDownCKD since 2016, which is not like me. I was usually working on 2 or 3 books at a time.
Right.
Teaching, out of the question. There's another thing, brain fog with the kidney disease.
Yes.
Your
I
blood is dirty, so to speak, because your kidneys aren't functioning as well as they could, and that dirty blood is going through your brain. I can't
mhm.
remember a script, so I went from stage acting to movies because you just have to remember one scene at a time, and then I
Right.
couldn't even remember that. So I did a
Right.
little print work, but that didn't really feel the same. So that's a career of the past.
I can relate to that because in my journey with kidney disease, I ended up suffering not just 8 pulmonary embolisms, blood clots in my lungs, but I had suffered 2 strokes. And some of the lasting side effects of having a stroke is memory and brain fog and these kind of things. And I really didn't start experiencing any ailments until I decided I was getting back on stage and I was going to talk to the world about this kidney disease that I have. And I was preparing all these speeches and I was writing them all down. And I'm like, man, I got to memorize this stuff. And that wasn't happening for me anymore.
Mhm.
I just had to learn to accept that aspect of, hey, man, I'm here every day. It's just part of not being 100%, you know?
I think of it
So
more as adapting rather than giving up.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like that. I like that way of looking at it because yeah, you're just adapting. So now I leave little notes for myself and
Uh-huh.
I gotta really pay attention to my calendar. I have to
Uh,
set all these reminders about my medication. I have to remember to refill them. My God,
You have to remember
I
to
do
set the reminders.
I gotta remember to set the reminder. Me and my wife, we have a funny inside joke at our house about me filling up the pool because I always go out in Florida. The water evaporates pretty quickly in the summertime, so filling up your pool is a pretty constant thing. And I always go and throw the water hose in, and then I'm gonna come back. It's an hour on the button usually, and it's right. If I turn it off in an hour, I'm good. I haven't remembered to turn it off in an hour. I mean, yet. So I come out, the pool's overflown. The wife's like, "Oh my God." So now I don't do that. I just don't do that task anymore. That's not a task for me. So I've accepted that. But yes, brain fog is it's an understatement for this disease, I believe, and
Yeah.
these are some of the things that our audience, when you're at work and you have kidney disease, you have brain fog. This is the reasons why we talk about this kind of stuff because
Mhm.
then your boss can understand why maybe you weren't out all night last night drinking, right? You just feel hungover because your kidneys are not filtering and they're not doing 100% of the work.
Mhm.
So, those are the things that we have those kind of conversations. So that's why this is amazing, 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 amazing. Now, you said you also throughout your journey that finding community kind of helped you and knowing the people around you to help you not feel so lonely. Was there a point in time that you were able to find some community, some uplifting aspects of your disease journey where you were like, okay, I can fight through this.
First of all, I don't think of myself as a warrior or a fighter. I dance
Okay.
with this disease.
You dance with it. I love that.
Sometimes I take the lead and sometimes the disease takes the lead.
Okay.
And as far as community, I found an online community. I found other kidney writers, other kidney political interested people, other kidney awareness people. Some of my
Did you
books are,
find that useful?
oh, yes, I think I would be a very lonely writer without that. I work for some pharmaceutical companies as a patient advocate, and I look forward to those meetings because there's 12 of us there on the screen and we're all involved in the same thing.
Yeah.
I'll go on Facebook and lo and behold, there's somebody who gets blocked. or there's somebody who wants to guest blog. Yes, I definitely need that community. And it serves me twofold because with my husband's physical illnesses, he can't really go out, which means that I really can't go out. So I'm not locked in,
Yeah,
just me and my
exactly.
dog, who is actually here being very well behaved.
So community is very important. Community was very, very, very important for me. It was the very first thing that I found that I needed when I was diagnosed was community. And it goes into why I created this foundation in the first place, is to provide this foundation of community to people, the mentorship, taking people on, helping them with their case, doing things like hopefully what we can do with your husband, and taking these rare but yet unexcusable situations like being exposed to Agent Orange during your time in the military, but yet not being taken care of by that. Not even just turning a blind eye as if it never happened to you, but you have to live with it. And then, Gail, you live with CKD yourself. How do you switch? You said it's a little bit of a difficult switching from caregiver to patient, to caregiver to patient. And I can only assume that your husband has to do the same thing now. And you guys got to kind of, do you guys coordinate that switch together?
At this point, we're married, I think, a dozen years. So at this point, we I'll put my hands up so you can see. We mesh, we dance. Where I'm not good, he is. Where he's not good, I am. He also has Alzheimer's. He can't remember much of anything. So I do all the programming. I call it the programming, but it's the appointments. And then when I need something done electronically, I go to him. Not because I can't do it, but because it's a pain in the neck to me. And he can do it. But I don't want to be bothered, really. He can do it so quickly.
I bet.
So it just works. He's wonderful. He was wonderful for all these years in keeping with my diet, my CKD diet. And now it's super easy because he has CKD too. And I remember when we first met and I had CKD and he did not, and I needed to exercise. We went up to the Grand Canyon and he sat in the while I did my walking. It just worked.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a yin and yang. Me and my wife, we've been married 19 years and we kind of feel the same way. So we kind of feel that we just mesh. I mean, there's been times where we're both down and then we just have to look at each other and go, nothing else matters. Turn the phones off, turn everything off. Let's get a snack. Let's lay in bed. We're not moving because we're both down.
I have to keep reminding him to laugh. Just laugh. I mean, this is what it is. You're not changing it. So adapt and find the humor and keep giving to others.
Absolutely. We do a twice a month, Gail. I'm not sure if you know, but the Enlisted Kidney Foundation, we've put together a free coffee and conversations. It's kind of like a place that we can go twice a month and find support and community. We don't go in there. It's not a complaint session, but it's a space that everybody in there has probably dealt with something similar to what you're dealing with or what your spouse is dealing with. I can tell you that my wife, as a caregiver who does not have kidney disease, relates to a lot of our guests there because they're caregivers as well. And that is a whole different aspect of this disease, is taking care of a person, a human whose kidneys don't work very well. Like, that is a feat all in itself, a whole full-time job.
It is.
Let alone do that and then have kidney disease as well. You know what I mean?
We as kidney disease people have so many full-time jobs. The doctor appointments, the taking care, the diet, the exercise, the children, the house. Some people probably have, thank goodness, I'm knocking on wood, their mothers and fathers. It's quite a bit.
It's a lot.
Life.
We gotta wear a lot of hats, right? We gotta wear a lot of hats. Now, you don't know what those hats are until you are diagnosed with CKD and then kind of go through it, right? So the whole point of us advocating and being kidney disease patient advocates is to allow that listener or the person who's following us today, to allow them some space that we don't want to live in ever again. What recommendations or what would you tell somebody that either maybe just found out they were diagnosed with CKD and they're scared and they don't know what to do, and they stumbled upon our podcast and they're listening right now? What do you say to them, Gail?
I'd say start out by reading my What Is It and How Did I Get It? Early Stage CKD, or some other book. There are new books now. When I started, there were maybe 3. Now, 15 years later, there are so many. Some introductory book to CKD. Sit with your significant other or a really good friend and brainstorm a list of questions you can ask your nephrologist. And the biggie, relax. It's only going to be the death of you if you don't take care of it.
I love that. I love that. Pay attention to it because, there's that stage of denial. I remember going through it while I was in the hospital and I had to look at myself and go, there's no denying this. I'm wearing the gown. My butt's out in the back. I'm in the hospital. It's going down. And I didn't have it, and I said, there's not going to be a doctor that's going to walk in with the answer. That's never going to happen. So if I want to walk out of here, I got to help the medical team come up with an answer that works for me.
You have to own it. You have to take responsibility for yourself. And if you can't do it for yourself, then do it for your kid or do it for your dog. But do it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you said, I want to touch real quick about finding a community because not only is that the saving grace of my kidney disease, I feel like, is finding people like you and, hearing other people's stories and letting people know that we're not alone. What made you want to share your story today with the world? I know I asked, and I know you do it in a very private way on the book, but for a writer to get in front of a camera and share her story with the world, why'd you decide to do that for us?
It's important for people to know. I think it's important for people to know that this is not going to kill you right away. Let me rephrase that. That you will die eventually, but not necessarily of CKD. I think it's important for people to know that there are others that have been living with it for years and years and years. I think it's important for people to know that it's not as esoteric as they think it is. And they don't need to be as frightened as they probably are. And that's why I'm here.
I love it. It's easy to say, don't be scared or don't be frightened. I deal with anxiety. I just do. I deal with anxiety and depression and PTSD and all the things. But I can't tell myself just don't have anxiety. What are some things that you do to cope? What are some mechanisms that you use? I mean, you tell people don't be scared, but how do we not be scared? Or how do we be scared but keep our head on straight and stay mission focused?
Well, when it first started, for me, when I was first diagnosed, I mentioned my daughter was getting married. I looked at her and I looked at my future son-in-law and I said, there's no way I'm going to miss this. And if fear gets in my way, then I have to go around it. It's going to be there. I can't make it go away, just like you can't make anxiety go away. But that doesn't mean that I can't work with it and find a way around it for at least a little while. And then that little while becomes another little while and another little while. One of my children has anxiety and she can't just stop. As you said, she just can't stop. So when she gets anxious, she calls me and we talk about it. And inevitably, what she says is, I'm glad you realize I can't just stop. That seems to help.
It does. I mean, I think it gets you more anxious when people are just telling you don't be anxious. You just like, hey, just don't be sick. Tell your kidney just work better. Hey, man, why aren't you doing 100% of your job? What are you doing down there at 36% or whatever it is? You know what I mean? Like, you just can't tell your organ to do something. I don't know.
But you can help your organ to do something. I mentioned I started out at 39, and then I went up to about 55, and then I went down to 38. And what I didn't realize was that I had an acute kidney injury when I was sick. This has not been the greatest winter for me. And now we're back up in the 50s again. So you can help the kidneys get better, maybe not 100%, but somewhat better.
We want to slow the progression of the kidney disease, right? That's the goal. Because there's no cure out there right now. We want to slow it down, CKD, right? I love that, Gail. I love that. Gail, before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you the last closing question. We'll wrap it all the way back to the beginning of our podcast episode. And for the followers that are still here listening to us, they're dedicated, they're motivated. Gail's given them some information that they're going to use today. Gail, tell me again, what does it mean after our conversation today to live the filter life?
To accept, to adapt, to own, acknowledge the chronic kidney disease, to see it as part of you, not the whole of you, to see where it fits into your life. And if it doesn't, to find ways so that it can.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's amazing. And we have our coffee and conversations that we do twice a month. And it's a group where we allow people to come in, have a safe space, talk and find community. That's part of healing. That's part of getting around the fear, right? On the other side of this fear, let me tell you, there's success. There is 100%.
Do you want to mention the address for that? The URL, if there is one?
Absolutely. Our website, enlistedkidneyfoundation.org. And as long as you're on our mailing list, you'll be added to our email listing, and we send out the Coffee and Conversations link to our entire email listing the night before the Coffee and Conversation. So we do it the very first Saturday of every month. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning on Zoom. And then we do the third Thursday of the month. The bar is open as long as everybody's in there drinking, right? It's that kind of mentality. So, we want to be able to have a safe place for patients to show up, express themselves, throw their ideas out there about the fear that they're going through. And maybe somebody can give them some navigation tools on how they got around that fear and how, hey man, ask your doctor this. How do you prepare? That's one of the things that I do really often is help patients prepare for their next doctor conversation, that 10-minute conversation where the doctors are going to come in and be like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? So I help the patients come up with that plan because it never goes the way it's supposed to go. We used to say in the Navy is everybody has a plan to get smacked in the face because then your plan goes out the window and you got to have a backup plan and you got to be able to pivot. What we want to be able to do is give people a place they can go and they can count on, like yourself and your husband, if you guys want to join our Coffee and Conversations and come hang out with us. This is a space for us. We also do our FilterLIFE membership. These are the patients that not only support us financially, our mission, and help keep these free programs that we offer free, but our FilterLIFE membership also gives those patients that tailored experience that they need, right? That one-on-one. Gail, if your husband's like, hey, I need to call that guy and I need to talk to him because something's going on and he knows about the connection and I don't know how to do this. And I went to the DAV and they've never filed a claim through the PACT Act before. I have so many cases like that we work with patients on an ongoing basis. And I block out time in our day to sit with those patients. And that's what the FilterLIFE membership opens us up to be able to do. Allows me to block off time in our day to be able to devote ourselves and our time to those patients who need it the most. And I don't know a whole lot of organizations that are doing that right now. So any closing words, remarks? You told us how you filter life. Anything else you'd like to say to the world before we log off here?
Yes, CKD is a condition. It's not your whole life. There are so many other parts of your life, and there's so much help available and community. Make use of it.
Gail, thank you so much for being our guest today on our Filter Life podcast. Thank you for filtering life with us and choosing us to filter life with.
You
and
are
we'll see you soon, okay?
very welcome.
Thank you.